Welcome to the Surviving Siblings podcast. I'm your host, Maya Roffler. As a surviving sibling myself, I knew that I wanted to share my story, my brother's story. I lost my brother to a homicide in November 2016, and after going through this experience, I knew that I wanted to share my story and his story. And now it's your turn to share your stories. Today I have Emily O'Brien with me, and Emily lost her brother Pete in a very interesting, unique way we have not talked about on the show yet, and during COVID. So we have a lot to unpack today. Emily, welcome to the show. It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to having you and sharing this very unique story.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of COVID stories on, but this is like we're starting to get into that time where I'm feeling more comfortable about sharing those stories because enough time has passed. Before we hit record, we were just talking about, oh my God, we're closer to 2030 than we are 2020. This is so wild, like
Yeah.
totally wild. But Emily, before we get into how you lost your sweet brother Pete, take us back in time. Tell us a little bit about you, Pete, your family dynamics. I know you guys are from Michigan. So, yeah, take
Yep.
us back. Tell us a little bit about you guys.
Yeah. Pete and I were the only siblings, so it was just the two of us. He is technically my older brother. We're 28 months apart, but everybody assumed, like, after we were kids, everybody assumed we were either twins or I was older because I was the more, like, mature, responsible one. But um, it was just the two of us, and we were like thick as thieves. Like, we were soulmates, best of friends. It was him and I together forever. Um, Inseparable when we were kids, and growing up, none of his friends had sisters. So I was like the little sister for everybody. So growing up, he had like 10, like 12 group of like guy friends. And so I was Pete's little sister, I was Scott's little sister, I was, Brian's little sister. So I was with him everywhere. And we were inseparable. And then like middle school, kind of I tagged along too much. And like we got distant.
Hmm.
Um High school was the same, like we were together and not together, but I mean it was always like he was my best friend. There was nothing that would stop us from, coming back together. So even when we would have our fights or, I'd be around too much, we would always still come back together. And then once I went away to college, um, then our like bond solidified. Like it was just like having space from each other just completely locked it in. So we were talking and texting constantly. And I was only on the other side of the state in Michigan. So I was only like 90 minutes, 2 hours away. And I was home every other weekend, or he'd come visit me. And it was, I mean, he was legitimately like my absolute best friend. Um, and I've heard like you talk in other episodes about like you and your brother, and like is still like my soulmate. Like we were like there's a Dave Matthews Band song called Sister. And when he first started playing it, he would tell the story that him and his little sister would say that when she was born, God took her heart and put it in his chest and his heart and put it in her chest. And that was how he always told the story. And as soon as Pete and I heard that, we were like, "Oh, that's exactly how you and I feel." And it
Oh
was
my God.
like that was how the two of us were. It was like
Yeah.
we knew what each other was thinking. We knew what each other was feeling. And I mean, even now, like, even with him gone, like, he's still my soulmate. He's still my best friend. He's still, like, that person for me, you know?
Yep.
Um, so I had lived away for a couple years, and I still saw him all the time, and then, after I graduated from I got my master's in 2005, and I was like, "I'm moving to Florida." Like, I'm not gonna live in Michigan anymore. So I moved down and my parents moved down, and then he stayed in Michigan for 2 years, and then he wasn't doing well, and I was like, "All right, that's it. Like, you can't survive up here without us." Came up, got him, and then he moved down to Florida, and then he lived with me the whole time we were in Florida together until I met my husband,
Yeah.
and then and then that was the only reason that, like, he moved out from us living together is because, I was living with the person that I eventually ended up marrying.
Yeah.
Um, but even then, I mean, he lived 5 minutes away, and we were together all the time.
Yeah.
And that's just who we were. I mean, I'm 44, and there's still people that call me Pete's little sister, and it's just like, that's just that's
Yeah.
who I was my whole life, and that I mean, we were inseparable
Yeah.
for until the day he died. I mean, almost.
Yeah, I mean, you really were, like,
Yeah,
wow, and, you're so sweet to remember that. Yes, I say the same thing about my brother, and you know what I find a lot of people, a lot of you guys who listen to the show and that get involved in our community, Emily, like, that's how they feel about their sibling, which is why they find the show or they find the community, in our group and the things that we do because when you lose that person, it's so intense. And so I definitely connect to that aspect of your story. And I love you bringing up the Dave Matthews like song. I'm going to listen to that so differently
yeah,
now because I didn't really like, yes. And like how, and it's so cool when you find like a poem or a story or a, song or whatever that like makes you go, "Oh my god, that's exactly how we feel." Like, it makes you feel so connected and validated that other people experience
yeah,
that too, and I think, like, that's kind of what this show does, is share stories like yours and Pete's and, mine as well, and everybody else who has shared because it makes people feel very validated in what they're experiencing, and I feel the same way as you. I still feel to this day that my brother is and was my soulmate, and I think it's a love talking about this with you already because I think we need to understand that like soulmates don't have to be romantic. They're just
yep,
people that they just get us. They get who we are. We don't like you said so perfectly. We don't have to say anything. My brother and I would just like give each other a look or like
yeah,
sometimes we wouldn't even have to look. We would just feel the energy.
yep,
You know what I mean? Like
yep,
and then when we finally did look, we were like, "Oh my god, we were both thinking the same thing at the same time." There was just that really deep connection.
yep,
And I think it's interesting too because you guys have a pretty close age gap. My brother and I were 3 years apart to the day. We had the same birthday and you guys were 2
crazy.
years. Yeah, it was very crazy. And so I often feel like you probably feel this way too, like that you connect with twins a lot because I feel like that
Yep,
connection is very prevalent with twins. So yeah, I definitely just wanted to take a moment and take a
yeah,
pause there on that because I feel like a lot of people listening are like, yeah, that was my person. That was my, sometimes they say best friend, or for me, it was like you, I said soulmate.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, he was. I mean, and, like, people would tease us, like, friends of my brothers would tease us, like, "Oh, is that your girlfriend?" Or, like, they would tease us
Yes.
about our relation. Yes. And we would always be like, just because you don't have anybody in your life that cares about you the same way that we care about each other. And we never really felt like it never bothered us because
Hmm.
we were never creeped out by it because I'm like, I don't like, that's not our relationship. Like, we're not
Yeah.
creepy. I love you and you love me, and like, I've got your back and you've got my back. And we knew that we were soulmates in that sense that like our souls are intertwined, and that's just what it is.
Hmm.
And so it was never like, we were never weirded out by it, and his friends did it just to kind of be like,
Well,
jerky guys, like
they're guys, right? They're
Yeah,
guys, and so that's how they are. It's so funny. I don't think I've ever told this story on the podcast. This is why I love meeting people like you, Emily. So I went through something similar, and it was more by the time I got someone in high school, but more by the time I got in college. And I'm the older one, right? So I'm in college first, and like he would come visit, and like my friends, and like we would just like hang out, like on the couch or lay in my bed and listen to music.
yeah,
Like we're siblings. It was never
yeah,
weird to us. And my friends, that was like the time when Angelina was having these weird pictures with her brother, and they were like,
right,
you're like, "Are you guys Angelina and whatever her brother's name is?" And like,
yeah,
so those little fun things, I don't
yeah,
know why, but that story just came to me as you were telling your
exactly,
story. But like, they would pick on him too, and they'd be like,
yes,
and so anyway, I totally get it.
right,
It's a funny
yes,
thing, but people make fun of what they don't understand.
yeah, yep, yeah, and his friends didn't have like, either they were only siblings or they didn't have close relationships with their siblings,
Right.
or they were just kinda jerks who didn't have those kind of relationships with anybody, you know?
Right.
And it's like him and I were very like, my brother was a we used to tease all the time, like, the show Scrubs, like, JD,
Hmm.
like, he was a sensei. That's what we were always like, "You're such a sensei," and he was a very sensitive guy. He was very open and vulnerable, um, and that's who he was, and so, like, heart on his sleeve and would tell you he loved you all the time and never had any problem showing emotion, and so,
Yeah.
like, his friends, the super macho kind of toxic guys didn't get that, and so when he was vulnerable or when he was super emotional, he was fine with it, and so him being lovey with his sister wasn't a big deal to him because he was lovey with everybody, I mean,
Right.
he said, "I love you" to literally everybody. He hugged his friends, he kissed his friends on the cheek, like, it didn't matter to him. That's how he lived, he showed love all the time and lived that way with everybody, you know? Him and I just had a different dynamic because we were together, you know, from the beginning, but,
Right.
you know
Yeah.
Yeah,
He just sounds like the sweetest guy and, like, what a loving, sweet guy. Oh my gosh. I
yeah.
have to I have to ask you, I don't always ask this on episodes, but I have to ask you when is his birthday? Or, like,
June
I'm
22nd. He's a
oh my
Cancer.
god. Yeah, I was gonna say, is he like some like, soft,
Yep,
sensitive sign? Yes, of course he
yep,
is. Oh my god. It
yep,
just I don't always ask that
right.
question, but, like, when I'm starting to get, like, traits and I'm
Oh,
like, because 'cause
yeah.
I'm really into astrology, so
Yep.
how funny. Oh my god,
He
yes.
absolutely was. Yep,
Yeah, yeah.
100%. Yep,
Such a sweet soul. I love cancers. They have the
yep,
sweetest hearts. Oh my gosh.
and he absolutely
Interesting.
was. Like, I tell everybody, like, he was charisma personified.
Mhm.
He just had this way about him, and he was a server and a bartender all his life,
Yeah.
in Michigan and in Florida, and he was good at it because he had this quality where you wanted to know him.
If you've lost a sibling, trust me, I know exactly how you feel. I'm Maya. I'm the host of the Surviving Siblings podcast, but I'm also the founder of Surviving Siblings Support. I know that going through this experience is extremely difficult, whether you've lost a brother like me, a sister, or perhaps more than one sibling. Trust me, we know exactly how you feel. So that's why I started our Patreon account. You can click below to find out more about our Patreon. If you join our Patreon group, it'll give you just a little bit of extra support that you need along your journey as a bereaved sibling, or as we like to call it, a surviving sibling. We offer monthly support groups. We offer a free copy of our grief guide that is actually found on Amazon. It's called the Grief Guide for Surviving Siblings. We also offer direct messaging to our community and to me for extra support. And we have incredible events. We have workshops throughout the year that you'll get access to, and you'll also have access to our summit that happens annually. And so much more as you'll connect with a community of surviving siblings that understand the journey of losing a sibling. You can click below to join us today and also check out some additional VIP features that we offer. I hope to see you in the group, and until then, keep on surviving, my surviving siblings.
Like, when he was in the hospital for a few days, and then after he passed, like, we asked people to share stories about him, but people would be like, "I only knew your brother for a few days," or "I only met him a few times," or "I only knew him for a year, but he was like my best friend." Or, like, people would meet him and instantly they just developed this connection with him because he just had that soul, he had that charisma, he had that ability to just, like, sit down and talk to you and be like, "Tell me everything about your life and let's be best friends." And
Yeah.
it wasn't fake, it wasn't BS, he wasn't doing it to get something out of you, he was literally, like, sitting down and, like, "Let's have a drink, let's smoke a cigarette, and I wanna know everything about your life, and let's be best friends for the next 2 hours."
Yeah.
And it was genuine, and people would walk away and be like, "Oh my gosh, like, I wanna get to know that guy, I wanna hang out with that guy again," and that's who he was. I mean, he was the biggest, kindest hearted person ever,
Well, that's why
and
he
people loved him.
enjoyed doing what he was doing because, like, I mean, if you go and you sit at a bar and you really want someone to talk to and you really feel like that person is genuinely connecting with you and you sometimes you need that bartender more than you need anybody else when you're going
Yep,
for something, you know?
mean? So,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah, so I think, wow, like, you've painted such a
yeah,
great picture
yeah.
of Pete. I wanna go back before we go forward for a
Okay.
second, Emily. So you were telling me about how you moved to Florida
Yeah,
and then how he eventually came to Florida, and you were
yeah,
saying he was kinda going through a difficult time.
yeah.
What was going on with him that he was going through a difficult time? Was there something
So
that had happened in his life? Or and then we'll go
yeah.
forward after, but I'm just curious about that.
So Pete was like like he's lovely, but Pete was not like a perfect, so he was always drinking. Like, I mean, he was into like, I mean, he wasn't into hard drugs, he wasn't like that, but he was always into stuff. And so after my parents and I left, he was drinking way more than he should. He was doing drugs way more than he should, and just kind of letting himself go. And as much charisma as he had and as big of a personality as he never wanted anybody to see the darker side. So every time I would see him, it was like, "Oh my god, everything is great. Oh, everything is amazing." But I would come up and visit, and it's like, "You're really skinny. Like, why are you skinny?" "Oh, I'm just really busy at work. I'm just running around a lot." And I'd be like, "God, you look like crap. Like, why are your eyes so, like, why do you look so terrible?" "Oh, I'm just really busy or I'm not eating well." And then it's like, "No, like that's not happening." And so we left him for about it was like 2 years, and it just got to the point where it was the last birthday that he had in Michigan. So it was his birthday of 2007, and I came up every year for his birthday. And I would stay at his house for a week or whatever. And I was up here and it was just party after party after party. And I mean, it was a bartender lifestyle. So all of his friends lived the same lifestyle.
Right.
So, sleep until 1 in the afternoon and then party until 3 in the morning. But it was harder than they were doing before. And it was like harder drugs than they were doing before. And it was just too much. And I was like, this isn't who you are. Um, and I don't like this person. And so it was very much like, um, and I had been working as a substance abuse counselor at the time. So I had graduated with a social work degree and I was doing substance abuse treatment in Florida. And so I was like, I can't live this life. Like, I can't live two separate lives. I can't do what I do and then have this secret life where I'm supporting you and being totally okay with you being who you are up here. And he, at that point, finally admitted um, that he was just wasting away. And he's like, I can't live up here without you guys. It's too hard and I'm alone. And so then I'm like, well, what the hell are we doing? Like, we've got a
Yeah.
place. Like, why are you up here alone? Like, there's place you can work in Florida. Like, there's bars, there's restaurants. Um, and so yeah, his birthday's in June 22nd. And so I flew back home and then my dad drove up with a U-Haul like probably 3 or 4 days later and moved him down 4th of July. Um, and it was just that fast. So, I mean, it was like me telling him, like, "I'm not doing this with you anymore," and him saying, "Okay, I get it. Like, I don't have to fake it anymore."
Right. Well, and
Yeah,
because of what you were doing for work, I love how you explained that, how you said, I couldn't live this like double life, like be cool with you doing that. You're the person that I love more than anything. But also there's this I'm sure this other dynamic that's happening, like you're doing this for work. So if
yeah,
anybody could see this and
yeah.
know what was happening, you were probably sniffing it out more than your parents or
Oh,
anybody
yeah.
else because you're like, this is literally what I do every day. I know what's really going on here and this is not who you really yeah, so
Yeah.
there's, like, a lot of layers to
Yep.
this, and I'm glad he said yes and he came to
Yeah, me
Florida
too.
with you guys. Yeah.
And I have no idea what would have I mean, I would think about it. We would talk about it a lot, like, what would have happened if you would have said no,
Right.
and he was always like, "I wouldn't have ever said no." Like, there was no choice, there was no world in which I would have said no, because I was very adamant, like, if when I leave, like, when I fly back home, if you aren't planning to come back with me, like, if you aren't packing up, if dad's not driving up with a U-Haul, like, I'm done, like, I'm not coming back. Um, and so in his mind, he's like, "There's no universe in which I say no to you, like, there's no universe in which I let this die," because that would have been essentially, like, the end of our relationship. Um, yeah, and so he's like, "There was no question. Of course I'm gonna move down with you."
That's amazing. I
Yeah,
just wanted to make sure we talked about this part of the
yeah,
story because I could tell that was important. So,
so obviously he lives with you, then
Yep.
you get married and life moves
Yeah.
forward. And
Yeah.
so take us to 2020, like
Okay.
a hard year for all of us, right? But
Yeah.
real hard
It's
year for
crazy.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is when you lost Pete, but tell
Yeah.
us what happened because your story
Okay.
is really
It's crazy.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. So it's the beginning of COVID starting. So it's March. Um, and he had been sick. So Pete and we've had ear infections our entire life. It's just something that we've always dealt with, right? And so the story kind of starts in September of 2019. And friend our his best friend, our best friends got married in Michigan in September. And he was up here and being a drunken idiot, got into a scooter accident and broke his shoulder. So he had to have a surgery back in Florida. He doesn't have health insurance because he's a bartender and a server. And so he owes the health system 40 something thousand dollars, right? Slowly, itty bitty paying it off, 20 bucks here, 20 bucks there, whatever. So the county that we lived in, there's one hospital system. So everything is owned, all the urgent cares, like everything is owned by one hospital system, right? So come March, he has an ear infection. He knows he has an ear infection, but he's not going to go to urgent care because in his mind, he owes them $40,000. And if he goes to urgent care, they're going to demand money to see him, money that
Sure.
he doesn't have, like extra money. And so he doesn't go. And he treats it the way that like he's treated it before, like, ear over the counter eardrops or whatever. So the last time we spoke, it was March 12th, which was a Thursday, and it was the start. So that's kind of like when the paper toilet or the toilet paper, like, stores are empty and it's like, what's happening, right?
Mhm.
So I had put my son to bed and then gone and done, like a grocery store run, and I took a picture of, like, empty grocery store shelves and sent it to him, and he writes back with, like, a ridiculous text, and I love it because it's so him and us, and he's like, "Don't you know that in the apocalypse, toilet paper is gonna be the new currency? Like, you should know this." Like, because we read, like, The Stand and Station 11, and, like, we would read all those books, and so then I called him, and, like, we talk all the way, like, I'm driving home, and we're just talking about, like, nonsense, like, "Isn't this the craziest thing in the world?" And, like, baseball games are canceled, and, like, they didn't play the final like, there's no college basketball, and just how crazy and weird everything is. Um, and so we talk and it's totally normal and I pull up in the driveway and it's like, "All right, like I'm home. I'm gonna unpack like this weirdness, I love you. I'll talk to you later." And so I went to bed that night, and I wake up in the morning and I have like 45 missed calls and text messages. Um, and I know that it's dumb and I shouldn't, but I will forever like regret that I didn't have my thought like cell phone on, like even though I don't think I could have done anything, but it's just like one of those things
Yeah.
that you look back and you're like, God, if only. But so it's Friday the 13th. And I have all these missed calls and text messages, and I'm going through them, and it's like, Emily, call me. Um, you know, Pete's sick. Emily, call me. And it's his roommate, his two roommates, and his on again, off again girlfriend. And his one roommate is a nurse. So I finally get a hold of him, and they're like, Pete got really sick last night. We took him to the emergency room. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she explains it very clipped and like loosely. And it's just the bit that I get from her at the time is I don't know exactly what happened, but he was really weird last night and something was wrong. And so we took him to the emergency room. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, he was totally out of it. They sedated him. He's in like a medical like coma, like, he's out of it and they're running a bunch of tests. I'm like, okay. And at no point in time, like this is like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. At no point in time was it like, oh my God, get up here, right? So I'm like, all right, okay. And so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go about my day. I call my dad and I'm like, did you get any messages from Pete's roommates? And no, and I'm like, okay, we'll call, and I like say the roommates and And I'm like, Pete's in the hospital or something. I don't really know what's going on. Call them, see what's happening. I got to go to work. And then my mom had a follow-up appointment from like a minor surgery. And so I was planning on taking like a half day anyway. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to work. I'll take mom to the doctor's appointment. You go to the hospital. We'll figure it out. So like I go to work like normal. I call his best friends in Michigan and I'm like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but like Pete got sick. He's in the hospital. Like they have him sedated while they're running a bunch of tests. I'll call you later. And it was all very like normal, kind of like he's just sick kind of thing.
Right.
So like I do my half day, I leave work, and I'm like saying to like everybody at work, I'm like, all right, like, I don't know, I'll call you later. Like, I'll figure out what's going on. I'll call you later. I'll see you Monday, whatever. So I go home, my husband and I grab my mom. And we're, like, driving, and we're like, "Oh, man, like, Pete's gonna need a GoFundMe for this one." Like, we're not like, "Oh, man," like, racking up the bills. We're all joking about, like, $40,000 plus whatever this, medical bill's gonna be. So we take my mom to her doctor's appointment, and she's back, like, in her doctor's appointment, and my cell phone's ringing, and it's my brother's roommate, the nurse. So I answer, and she's like, "Where are you?" Said, "I'm sitting in the waiting room with mom. She's back doing her checkup." And she's like, "Go outside so I can talk to you." Like, "Okay." And so I walk out and she's like, "I don't know if your dad doesn't understand what's happening or isn't telling you what's happening, but you need to get up here." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "I've been fighting with," and she like lists off all of the friends that are there, like my brother's closest friends, about whether or not to call you. And she's like, "And I'm done fighting with them. You need to get up here." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she says, she's like, "They've done 3 EEGs since 2 AM." And that's like the brain scan.
Right.
And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Pete has no brain function."
What?
And I'm like, I go, "What?" And she's like, "You need to get up here, Em." And I'm like, "Does dad know?" And she's like, "Dad knows all your dad knows all of this. Like they keep doing tests. Pete's gone."
What?
And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And
Yeah.
she's like, "It's bad. It's bad." So I'm like, she's like, "Go get your mom and get over here." And like we were right across the street from the hospital he was at. So I go in, my mom comes out. And I must have God only knows what I looked like, but my mom comes out and looks at me and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's bad. Like, we need to go. Like, so and so just called. It's bad." So we go, and like as we check in, like the way that everybody like so we walk in and we say his name and we're like, "We're here for Pete O'Brien." And like it's the start of COVID. And so you're only supposed to have 2 people in a room and it's the medical ICU and they just look at us
Mhm.
and they're like, check us in and they're like, go. And, like, there's 3 of us, and God only knows how many people are up there, and they don't even care, and so we're like, "Oh god," right? So we go up, and immediately the nurse sees us and grabs the emergence like, whoever the doctor on call was, um, and, like, we didn't even see him. We didn't even walk into the room, and the doctor comes out, and my dad is sitting there, and it's still, like, to this day, like, I still don't know whether my dad didn't ever process it or, like, didn't know what to do. Like, it's this very weird thing, like, I don't know how much of it he really understood, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So we're out in the hallway, and this doctor comes out and says, "I'm gonna explain what's happened." And we're like, "Okay." And it's, like, 1:30 in the afternoon at this point, and they took Pete in at about, like, 12:30 that morning. So he says, "Your brother came in this morning. His roommate had brought him in stating that he was making," and she called it herky-jerky movements. Like, he was in his room and was, like, moving in a way that she recognized as a nurse was not normal. His body was moving in an abnormal way. They brought him into the emergency room, and he was speaking not in tongues, like in a religious way, but like in a gibberish, not making any sense way.
Mhm.
And he got very aggressive because nobody could understand what he was saying. So they restrained him and sedated him. And at that point, they knew that something was wrong, and they recognized that his body had started going into sepsis. So he says he had a severe ear infection, which had infected the bones of his inner ear. So, like the hammer and the stirrup inside his inner ear, which had then moved into his brainstem,
Oh my god.
which had then caused encephalitis, so the swelling of the brain. And so we're all just sitting there, and I'm like,
In shock.
my
You're
brother's,
in shock,
yeah,
right? Like, oh my god. Yeah.
yes. And they're like, we've done 3 EEGs since this morning, and he has no brain function. And I'm like, my brother had an ear infection. And the doctor's like, I've never seen this. I will probably never see this again. This is legitimately a once in a lifetime case.
Wow.
So they're like, we're doing the best that we can to see if we can reduce the swelling in his brain, like cold, whatever. And they're like, and he's like, but essentially, he's gone. And we're just like, he had an ear infection.
Mhm.
Like, he had an ear infection. And so we went from, like, he had an ear infection to he was gone in a matter of 18 hours, essentially. I mean, it was that fast. And and so and it's just that fast. And then so, like, that's Friday. And then, like, and I'm a mom. My son he hadn't turned 2. He would have turned 2, he was turning 2 a week later.
Oh my god, you had like a baby. Oh
I
my
had a
god.
baby. So his daycare, like, I have to pick him up from daycare in an hour and a half.
Oh my god, Emily. Yeah.
And so we're sitting there, and, like, the first words out of my mom's mouth, she looks over at me and she says, "Start writing the obituary." And I'm
Oh.
like, "Right?" And then, like, this is the reason that I was so drawn to you and the podcast is
Yeah.
we stand up and, like, move back into the room, and everybody goes to my parents, they go to his girlfriend, they're going to his friends, and it's like it's this whole morning taking care of each other, and I'm standing there, and I'm like, "Hello?" And I'm like and the only
It's
words that
almost like you're outside. It's like when those moments happen, this is what I feel like you're
yeah,
describing, and I went through this too, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to this. This is why I wanna double click on this moment that you're describing, Emily. It's like when everybody starts to move towards the person they think is important, you're, like, pushed out. It's almost like you're watching a movie.
seriously.
Weird.
Like, you're on the other side of a glass wall,
Mhm.
and even my husband is, like, standing there, and it's like his hand is, like, on, like, my arm, but it's clear that, like, even he thinks, like, he needs to be, like, either at my brother's side or, like, with my parents.
Mhm.
And I'm like, people are more concerned with his on again, off again girlfriend, who he has been on again, off again with for 2 years at the most. And I'm like, "Hello?" Like,
Right.
"Sister,"
Yes.
I'm sure everybody listening knows this feeling, and it's the craziest feeling in the world to be standing there and watching everybody else fall apart and just standing there, and, like, I didn't cry. I didn't lose it. I didn't do anything. I just, like, stood there.
Mm.
And then I remember walking over and, like, grabbing his hand and just standing there, like, looking at him in this hospital bed, and I'm like, "What the hell is going on right now?"
Yeah.
Because he's breathing,
Right.
He's got tubes, like, his chest is moving up and down,
Right.
and then I'm like, "I have to go pick up my son,
Right.
who's not even 2," and, like
How do you explain this to him? It's like a whole other yeah, yeah, it's
yes.
crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
So so that's, like so then Friday, like, then I have to make the phone calls to his best friends in Michigan who, like, I heard like, I tell everybody it's like The Princess Bride when Inigo says, like, "The sound of ultimate suffering,"
Yes.
because it's like when I called his friend, the ones that had got married in September, and I said, I was like, "I can't believe I'm telling you this after I told you this morning that he's sick." And he's like, "Don't even say the words, Emily." And I was like, "I have to." And he's like, "Don't even say it." And I was like, "Pete's gone." And, like, I literally heard his heartbreak. And even then, it's like, I'm comforting you because I just had to give you this news. And I'm like, and you're crying and losing your mind. And I'm like, and I'm still sitting here. Like, I'm telling you this. And my heart's broken, but I'm not showing that my heart's broken?
Yeah.
And it's ludicrous. And then the weekend just gets crazier because then we find out my brother is an organ donor, which none of us knew until this moment. And there's the craziest rules around like declaring an organ donor brain dead, which go like back to like grave robbing like days back in London or whatever. And you have to have two completely independent doctors who have never communicated with the original doctor or the staff, but it's COVID. So, like, COVID had just started, so doctors aren't traveling between hospitals,
Right.
so they have to do everything by telemedicine, but the nurses who are in the room with the little telemedicine machines can't be nurses that have ever coordinated with my brother's care or with the doctor who first, like, declared him brain. So then we're sitting there and we're like, "We have to wait." It takes 2 full days for them to officially, like, declare. And we're all just sitting around and we're like, "What are we doing?" Like
Yeah. I didn't even think about that because with my brother, even though of course we lost him a totally different way, he was an organ donor as well. We didn't know that, but like we did you don't know the process until you go through it. And it wasn't COVID, thank God. So, I mean, it did feel like a lot of sitting around. You have to wait and they have to wait a certain
yeah,
amount of time and he's gone. And like now I look back on it and I'm like, I'm grateful for the time because I got to sleep in the
yes,
room with him and stuff like
yeah,
that. But I mean, what an awkward thing for you guys to go through and like all the I mean, I'm just glad that you guys got to all be in the room because
yeah,
I'm so glad you shared that with us because
yeah,
as we're talking more and more about COVID, like
yeah,
experiences in our sibling losses, like
yes,
that was one of my first questions when we first connected, I read your story. I was like, God, I wonder if she's going to tell me about being in the
yeah,
hospital because this is like
yeah.
really wild.
S
Wow. That's
so
wild.
it was still the start. So, like, none of the
Mhm.
doctors were like there weren't COVID protocols yet. So, like,
And
the
they hadn't figured
doctors were
anything out yet. Yeah.
no,
I mean,
they
nothing.
weren't all masked.
Hmm.
So, like, we were all still normal. We were allowed to come and go. The team was amazing. They took such good care of us. The donor team that came in, um and my brother, like, the craziest thing, and we will joke about it for all of eternity, my brother drank, like I mean, my brother claims that we're 100% Irish. I did a DNA test, like, the year before he died, and we're, like, 4% Irish,
Yeah.
and he was so mad at me forever. But so he, it's so crazy that they ended up taking his organs, like, after midnight on St. Patrick's Day, and we're like, "You did that, like, somehow fate did that so that
Yeah.
you officially your heart stopped beating in your own chest on St. Patrick's Day," but he donated his liver, and we're like, "How in the universe was your liver in any condition to save somebody else's life?" But he donated his liver saved somebody's life, his heart saved somebody's life, his kidneys and his skin and his eyes were used for, like, research and other stuff,
Hmm.
and the team was amazing, and they took such unbelievably good care of him, and so we were very thankful, yes, that we had 4 days that we got to spend in the hospital with him. Um, and like 100 and something people passed through and came in and just wanted to like say something to my parents and say like, Pete meant so much to me, or, I never got to meet you, but Pete did this for me, or the stories that we heard, like people that I had never known. people my parents had never met, and it was just about how unbelievable of a person he was. And it was, like, all of the things I said in the very beginning repeated back to us over and over and over again, just by 100 strangers, you know? And it was amazing. It really was, like, I mean, I hate that he died, of course, but it was amazing to hear how many lives he touched and how much people loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you still have people reach like, that happens to
Oh god.
me, like and this will happen to you after this episode too. I'm sure you still have people reach out to you and say, "Oh, Emily, I never told you, but Pete, fill in the blank, and Pete did this," and it's so hard to lose your sibling. That's why we have this show, obviously, but, um, I have found that to be just a way that, like, my brother really lives on with me is through these
Yeah,
little stories, even if someone just met him one time, and I'm sure he's feel
right.
the same way about Pete, like, it's just like it makes you feel good, it makes you feel like they're still with you.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, 6 years now, so, like, I had said in, like, the emails that when we had talked, like, the first 2 years, I don't think I grieved at all. I don't
Right.
think
Tell us about
I
that. Like, what do you think you were just in shock? Do you think COVID was so intense? Like, do you think it was a combination of things?
it
Also,
was
you're a newer mom too,
yeah,
like, you have a lot going on.
I
Yeah.
think it was all of it. I think it was I didn't let myself because I took care of everybody else.
Yeah.
I put so much into making sure everybody else was okay. I mean, don't get like, I cried myself to sleep every night. I woke up crying every day. I cried in the shower. I cried on my way to work. Like, I did all of that. Like, I did that. I didn't publicly grieve. I didn't publicly cry. I didn't lose it in front of anybody
Mhm.
because I felt as though it was my job to hold it together for everybody else. And I felt like that was established from the moment that that doctor told us that he was gone. Like,
Mhm.
it felt like it was very clear at that moment that that's what my job was and that's what my role was, and everybody else allowed it to stay that way. At no point in time did my parents or my husband or anybody ever say, like, "You need to let go. Like, we've got this. Let us take it. Sit down." So I threw myself into a nonprofit that we created for him where we started giving out money to bartenders and servers that were affected by COVID. And that was another
What
way
great
that I was
timing. Yeah, I
right?
loved when you shared that with me. Like, that was great timing
Yep.
for that completely, and
Yep.
so you had to have an outlet for your grief, so thank God you did that,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, it was just and I mean, I'm glad that I did it and we helped a lot of people. And I think eventually we'll restart it. But I see it now that it was entirely a way for me just to not feel anything.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people listening to this, like if you're in that stage, you know exactly what it is. You just can't do it.
Mhm.
You can't let yourself fall apart. Like I had a baby. I still worked. Like I worked at a dental office during COVID that was still open because Florida didn't really believe in COVID. So we stayed open and
Right,
we still did
right.
everything. Um, but like my life went on. Like everything was the same. I got up every day and I went to work and I fed my son and I put my son to bed every night. And every day I woke up and I was like, "Oh my god, today's Tuesday and my brother's dead. Oh my god, today is Wednesday and my brother's dead?" And there was 2 solid years of that. And then like the middle 2 years hit me and then it became like, "Oh my god." Like I stopped doing the carry everybody on my back thing. And that was when I moved back up to Michigan. Essentially, like, I needed to get away from Florida, and we had a lot of family stuff happening, and then I just stopped living entirely. So it was like going through the motions.
Yeah.
Like, I was so numb. I was numb to everything. I
Is it like a lot of people describe it almost like a Walking Dead kind of feeling,
Yep,
like you're just kind of going through I'm like, "This is so what Emily is describing." Yes, like a Walking Dead
1,000%.
numb
Yep,
feeling, like
yep,
and it's interesting that this was happening to you in, like, year 2 going on 3 because that's very common for people where
yep,
it's just like, "This is getting so intense that I just have to numb it out because I don't know if I can handle this."
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep, and it was, and, like, people would say, "Oh, you're depressed," and I was like, "No, it wasn't even depressed because depressed is something." Like, it was Walking Dead is it. It was nothing. I I faked it when my son was around. So, like, when my son was awake and I was with him, I was like, "Yay, and what are we doing? And oh my god, I love you so much, and let's do something." And then the second he was asleep or the second he was at school or the second he was not there, it was, like, right back to I would sit on the couch and just scroll for, like, a day. I would flip I mean, I was not living. I was not The Walking Dead is exactly what was.
But
And
that's so exhausting, Emily. Like you, I mean, to be the Walking Dead version is exhausting, but now you're also adding, and a lot of you guys will relate to this too. And you might, like Emily said, you might be in this, moment in your grief too. But like having to wear this mask and like you're acting, and like that's the reason there is a job for actors is because it is work, right? It is a job. And so I definitely can relate to that. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to what you're
yeah,
describing because then I could even just see as you're describing this thing, your body just like relaxes when you're like, okay, my son went to bed or went to school, or like I could just be alone. And like that's why you're disassociating by scrolling or watching or, because it's just so much to do that. So what shifted? What was the moment for you when you were like,
yeah,
I gotta live again. Like I can't be this shell of who
yeah.
I used to be. Like what was that
So
moment for you?
it's peaked, so it's entirely peaked. Um, so I started going to, like, mediums and psychics, like, about 18 months after Pete died.
Okay.
And I would pick people at random, like, and I would never use like, I would always get a fake email, like, I'd create
I
one
did the
to reach
same
out,
thing.
right?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, so
Um,
smart. Yes.
so that they would never know who I was, I would
Sure.
never use my name, um, and it's amazing, like, he would come through right away, instantly, and it was all like, they knew him right away, and they pegged him, and they would describe him to a T. And I never felt, like, jilted, I never felt like this was fake because it was him, and it felt like him right away.
Right.
And so, even during, like, the Walking Dead stuff, I would still do it, like, I would do it around my birthday and around, like, the anniversary of his death, um, and so it got the more I was doing it, like, the more I and you had said this too, that you started getting more in tune with your brother even without going like, seeking somebody else out,
Yes.
and so I could start to feel it too, so I would start dreaming about him more, um, even without, like, seeking somebody else out. So, it was around, like, right around the 5th anniversary, so around 2025-ish. Begin no, so it was before, it was, like, January 2025. Um, and so it's one morning and I wake up, I'm still sleeping, obviously, but, like, in my dream, I wake up and he's sitting at the edge of my bed, and he's just, like, shaking his head at me. And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, and I'm like, "What?" He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Do you wanna die?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "'Cause, like, this ends, like, we can do this now if you want, like, I mean, if you're gonna die, like, we can just do this." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Whatever you're doing here, like, whatever you're doing, we can just do it now." And I'm
Whoa,
like,
I
"No,
have
I don't wanna
chills.
die." Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "No, I don't wanna die." Like, "No, like, I have a kid." Like, "No, I don't wanna die." He's like, "Well, then what the hell are you doing?" And, like, I remember it, like, and I'm crying, and I'm like, "You're gone." And I'm like, "This sucks." Like, you know? And I remember, like, and I could picture it, And he's like, "So?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, so?" Like, we're having this argument, like, in my dream, whatever. Um, but he's like, "That doesn't mean anything." And he's like, "So what? I'm gone." Like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay." And he's like, "Suck it up," you know? And then I wake up, and then, like, the next day, he's there again. And he's like, "So what are we doing? Like, are you getting up? Like, are we doing this? Like, what are we doing?"
Wow.
And then it's, like, almost every day. And then he's like, what did we always say?" I'm like, "I don't know. What did we always say? You know what we said. I don't know what we said." And then I wake up and I'm thinking of the Shawshank Redemption, like, get busy living or get busy dying.
One of my
And that
favorite
was
movies of all time.
right?
Yes.
And that was one of the things, like, him and I used to always say, like, "What an amazing quote." So I wake up and I'm like, "You son of a," you know?
Yes.
And it's like, "Okay." And so and then, like, he starts coming to me more frequently, and now I mean, like, now he's with me all the time, but he starts coming more often, and he's like, "This ends." He's like, "You've realized this, like, you have one life, like, this ends, like, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "So do something." He's like, "This is your life, like, you get to choose." So I'm like, "Oh my god," like, "Holy crap, like, I don't have to do this," you know?
Yeah.
And it was entirely him, and and I'm sitting there and I'm like, "God, I'm miserable," and I'm like, "God, I'm like, I am miserable." So I started going back to therapy. And like, in therapy, I'm like, "God, I'm miserable." And then I'm like, "I don't wanna be married anymore." So I'm like, I'm not happy. So I'm like, "I don't wanna be married." So I'm like, I like and my therapist is like, "You don't have to be married if you don't wanna be married. Like, you're miserable in your marriage. Why are you in your marriage?" And I'm like, "Well,
Right.
because I'm married." She's like, "So don't be married." And I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm allowed to do that."
You're
You
like,
know?
"Oh, that's it. That was an option this whole time. Like, I didn't know." Yeah, yeah.
Right? And it's like
Mhm.
you're so stuck in like this,
Yes.
like family and like this is what you're supposed to do. And I'm like,
Well,
"Oh
like,
my god,
when
I
you're
c-"
grieving though, Emily, like,
Yes.
everything feels so big. Like, it feels like,
Yeah.
"How would I even do" like, getting out of bed feels big. So
Yeah.
leaving a marriage or leaving a
Exactly.
situation where you're not happy, that feels, like, insurmountable. So I understand why you felt the way that you did,
Right?
but you just needed someone, a trusted therapist to tell you, like, "This is an option. You can do
Right?
this."
You're
Like,
allowed to.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
powerful.
And
Mhm.
exactly. And it's like, my brother telling me, like, "You're allowed to like live your life. Like you get one of these. Like
Mhm.
you are gonna die one day. So choose to live."
Yeah.
And then my therapist being like, "If you don't wanna be married, you don't have to be." And I'm like, "Oh my god, I could do that?" So, I left my husband.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, "Oh my god, it's been a year." Now I'm like, "Do I still wanna have this job that I have?" And I'm like, "Maybe I don't." I'm like, "Oh." And then I'm like, "Maybe I wanna share my story. Like, maybe I wanna talk about Pete." And it's like all of this stuff is, like, happening,
Yeah.
And, I reach out to you and you're like, "Hey, I have time right now." And I'm like, "Oh my god, like this is all," and it all just starts to fall into place.
Yes.
And I'm like, "This is what happens when you start living your life." Like this is what happens when you give yourself permission to live your life. Like it's my life. I get to do this now, you know?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's yeah. I mean, I had to go through 2 years of The Walking Dead,
Yes.
but yeah, and I get to live it, and I mean, I miss my brother every single day, as I'm sure everybody listening misses their sibling every day, but, I mean, he's with me all the time,
But
I mean
he's guiding you to life again. Like,
absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
I love your story, Emily. Oh my god, I'm so glad we connected
Yeah,
because
me too.
there's just so many aspects of your story that I connect with personally, but I know so many people are gonna go, "Oh my god,"
Yeah,
like, it's gonna be super inspiring, and I think your story will also give people hope, if they're
I hope
open to
so.
that because, not everybody believes in an afterlife, but I do,
Right.
and, you know, I think hearing what I love about our stories is we often guests like you will talk about the continued relationship that you have with your sibling even after
Yeah.
they pass. And so your story is a great example of that. And I love that he visited you and was like
Oh
sitting
god,
on the bed going, "What now?
yelling at
What are we
me.
gonna do? What are we gonna do?"
Yeah.
That's such a sibling thing to do. And I love it.
Still,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Still
Yeah.
yelling at me. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you about this though, and because it's so you've shared so much and so openly, and that's what makes these episodes really incredible. But thank you for sharing about your divorce as well. And
Yeah.
I kind of knew that would potentially be where we are going. And I get asked this a lot. Um, when siblings are like newly bereaved, right? And like their partner is really not supporting them and is not super there for them. And, you know, a lot of these stories do end up where you're not together anymore
Yep.
because sometimes they just don't understand. And, unfortunately, I have a very similar tale. And, I got divorced and it's just, my ex-husband and I are now very good friends, and that's great, and I'm so happy about that, but I remember there were just so many things, and so it's just really nice to have somebody come on and share openly about that, like, you weren't happy, and, like, even in that moment where it was, like, everything zoomed out and you're watching this movie of everyone else, it was fascinating to me that your husband was in the movie, he wasn't with you. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And
Yep.
that kind of that parallel, and
Yep.
I connected very much to that because I'm
Yep.
like, "Oh my gosh, I connect with you," because I remember watching my sisters and, like, their partners were in the movie with them. My
Yep.
partner was not in the movie with me for many parts of it, and I was like, that I think that's a very I think you can recover from that, and I tell people all the time, they'll talk to me about their spouse, and they feel like they don't understand, and I'm like, "It really there's no in between. It will go one way or the other. Either they want to dive in and understand your love for your sibling, or it will eventually become something where you're just like, "I don't think I'll ever get over this, and I don't wanna
Yep.
stay angry or resentful about this for the rest of my life."
Yep.
That's where it goes, and I'm
Yep.
curious if you feel yeah, it sounds like you feel the same way.
1,000.
Perfect.
And I say now, um, well, it's like it's interesting. I had told my dad on numerous occasions in the 5 years between my brother passing and me deciding to leave. I had said numerous times that I wanted to leave.
Mhm.
I had said at about the 3-month mark that I was going to leave, um, because I knew that he wasn't supporting me in any way, shape, or form. And then I had said it around 6 months, and both times my dad was like, "You don't really wanna do anything in the first year. Like, don't make any rash decisions."
I don't know that that's wrong. I don't know that he's wrong.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
like, knowing what I know now, like, I knew it was never gonna change,
Right, totally.
right?
Right.
Um, but, like, looking back, what you said is in my I would agree with you 1,000% that you know right away. You know right away whether that person is your person or not your person,
Yeah.
and you feel it in that moment. And I remember looking at the spouses, like, you had siblings. I remember looking at the spouses of the friends, and, like, the dynamic was so polar opposite of,
Yep.
like, who was there for each other and who wasn't.
Mhm.
And, like, for me, I mean, like, there was a moment within the first 9 months where I woke up crying every day for God only knows how long. A year maybe, I don't know. And I woke up crying, and my husband looked at me and said, "What's wrong?" And I was like, I I'm sad." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "My brother is dead."
I'm
He's
grieving.
like and
Hello.
he's like, "Oh, you're still that sad about that?" And I was like, "Oh, oh." And I was like, "Yeah, like, this is irreparable at this moment." And,
Yep.
like, and I knew then. I mean, I stayed for another 4.5 years, but, like, I knew then at that moment, like, you're never gonna understand how much this hurt. And, like, he would say, like, when I would be grieving and devastated, he'd go, "Well, he was my friend too, and I really miss him." And I'd be like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, I think
You
that's a tough one because 'cause I've heard that from people too, and, I I think that's a tough one because I think what's happening is they're trying to relate to you, but in doing so, they don't understand that they're actually diminishing your
Yeah,
grief. And so
exactly.
that's why it's so important. And I just, again, appreciate you being so open about this aspect of your grief too, because, I think sometimes we have a lot of people that come on the show and they've had a great partner and this and that, but like there are a lot of situations where that isn't the case, right?
Yeah,
And so hearing these stories, it makes you feel validated and understanding like, look, not everything is coming up roses always. So, I think it's important that if you have someone in your life, spouse, partner, whatever, um, if they're really in it with you, like they'll learn the language and they'll learn
yeah,
what's appropriate and they'll show up to therapy or whatever you're doing.
yep,
Like I've had a couple of folks that have asked me, hey, can my spouse come to group? I'm like, yes, they can
Yes.
absolutely come to group. Like, it's not their turn to share, it's for siblings, right? But if you want them to or come to our summit or whatever, I'm like, they
Yes.
should. It's not
Yes.
yes, they
Yeah.
should, because they're
Yeah.
going to understand you, and the ones that have, it helps the relationships tremendously. Just listening to this episode would probably help
Yeah.
tremendously, right?
Yeah.
So I really commend you for
Yeah.
sharing that, Emily. And it seems like you like everything's flowing, like we connected.
Yeah.
It's like Pete's just kind of guiding you.
Oh, yeah.
I hope that she'll relaunch the nonprofit so that we can
Yeah.
get that involved in our community too, because
Yes.
I mean, I can't even imagine how many people you helped,
Yeah.
especially during COVID, because that it was an industry that was just completely just
Yeah.
blown to pieces. And so um
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what you do with that
Yeah.
when you
Me
get that
too.
back up and running. That's
Me
amazing.
too.
So before we close out, before we tell
Yeah.
people where to find you, I always like to ask if there's something I didn't ask you, or some like a little piece of advice or something you would go back and share with Emily, 5, 6 years ago, or anybody who's listening that might be Emily, right? At
Yeah.
any point in time. Yeah.
Um, the thing I think I wish I would have told myself, or I wish somebody would have told me, especially early on, is, and it like there's the book, like it's okay to not be okay, but
Oh, yeah.
is like that. Like there are no answers and you don't have to be okay. And like especially if like you're the eldest daughter or you have that whole like eldest daughter thing hanging over you, like don't. And find like if you're listening to this podcast and you are early on in grief, like you are already taking better care of yourself than I ever did. And that's amazing. I mean, like finding people that get you and being with people who understand the connection that you had with your sibling and don't diminish it or don't undervalue it and are there for you, like that's what's going to pull you through because we do have something different than everybody else does. And it's an entirely different kind of grief and it's an entirely different relationship that parents will never understand and friends will never understand and partners won't understand because it is so fundamentally different to lose the kind of like person that you were supposed to bury your parents with and that you were like so like seek out the people that understand you. Like, listening to this is a way better start than I had. So, I mean, you're already taking way better care of yourself than than I did, you know?
Yeah.
And don't be too hard on yourself. Like, I was so hard on myself.
Me
And
too.
and
Yes.
it, you know, and it just and I'm sure that it made the 2 years that I was the living dead last longer than it needed to, but um there is no right answer and,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
care. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I say that all the time too. I'm like, if you're listening to this, I mean, like when I meet people on, that write to me, or I meet people on TikTok and they're telling me that, I'm like, you're doing better than me. You're going to be fine. You're going to be okay, because trust
Right?
me, it was a hot mess over here. So it's all good. All good. I was walking dead for many years. So I get you, Emily. Where can
Right.
people connect with you? So many people are going to connect with your story. Where are you comfortable with people reaching out on? So is there a social channel you prefer? Is there an email? Let us know and we'll put it in the comments.
Email's probably best.
Awesome.
It's o'brien.emily.b@gmail. You can find me on like Facebook and Instagram at O'brienEB, but that's just kind of me being a hot mess on social media. But you're welcome to find me and interact with all my insanity on there. But
Okay.
yeah,
Perfect. We'll put your yeah,
yeah,
we'll put your email in here. And thank you so much for sharing Pete with us
yes,
and for sharing your story and your vulnerability. Thanks for being here.
yeah. I'm so glad we had to hook up and connect. So thank you so much.
Me too.
Thank you so much for listening to the Surviving Siblings podcast. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did creating it for you, then share it on your chosen social media platform. And don't forget to tag us at Surviving Siblings Podcast so that more surviving siblings can find us. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Surviving Siblings podcast. All links can be found in the show notes, so be sure to check those out too. Thank you again for the support. Until the next episode, keep on surviving, my surviving siblings.